straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. We're on the show today. Max Verstappen is Max miffed. He has threatened to quit the sport, and this after FIA dealt him with a punishment for swearing in a press conference. That's right, as the FIA being a school headmaster, killing the buzz and the character of the sport and the sports persons. Speaking of killing of a sport, is Russia slowly falling off the grid? Fide has upheld their ban on Russian chess players, and that's left Russia enraged. More on that in just a bit, and welcome to the new love triangle that's taken the world of tennis by storm. Roger Federer has entered the bromance between Carlos Alcaraz and Rafael Nadal. What is brewing in there? But first, let's take a look at the headlines in Sports 360. Starting with tennis, Rafael Nadal has been named in Spain's squad for the Davis Cup quarterfinals in November. He joins a strong team that includes Carlos Alcaraz, Roberto Bautista Agut, Pablo Carreño Busta and Marcel Granollers. Nadal hasn't competed since the 2024 Paris Olympics. He has also missed the US Open and the Laver Cup due to ongoing fitness concerns. India's former number one tennis singles player Somdev Varman and doubles specialist Purav Raja have dragged the country's national tennis governing body, AITA, to the court. The duo have accused the association of violating a number of sports codes. They even highlighted the lack of seats for athletes in governance. The accusations come ahead of AITA's elections, which is scheduled to take place on the 28th of September. Over in football, Manchester City midfielder Rodri is expected to miss the rest of the season due to an ACL tear in his right knee. The injury occurred during City's 2-2 draw with Arsenal. Rodri is likely to have surgery in Barcelona with further tests planned. Reports say, though, recovery could sideline him for up to 9 months. England's Football Association, or the FA, is investigating a Preston footballer, Milutin Osmaic. This is for allegedly biting Blackburn's Owen Beck during a game. The incident occurred after Beck kicked one of Osmaic's teammates. If found guilty, Osmaic could receive a lengthy ban. And over in cricket, England women's team captain Heather Knight has been fined $1,300 after a 12-year-old photo of Knight wearing a black face resurfaced. In the photo, Knight painted her face black, denoting people of colour in a themed party. Cricket Discipline Commission adjudicator Tim O'Gorman called the conduct racist and discriminatory. Knight has now issued an apology for that action. Russia and India may have long and cordial relations, but they are at the opposite ends of the sporting spectrum, at least when it comes to chess. On one end, India is taking giant steps towards becoming a rising superpower in various sporting disciplines, and on the other, the once dominant powerhouse, Russia, is falling off the grid. The latest blow comes from chess's governing body, Fide, which has decided to uphold a blanket ban on Russian and Belarusian players. This is because of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The ban was already in place, but there was a proposal to lift sanctions for children under 12 years of age and players with disabilities. Voting, of course, took place during the General Assembly of Fide. This included representatives from all member nations. But eventually, the verdict came against Russia and Belarus. It all started when Kyrgyzstan's Chess Federation proposed to lift restrictions on Russia and Belarus. Western nations heavily protested against the proposal. But ultimately, it was a crushing defeat for Russia and Belarus. Following the verdict, Russia accused Fide of bowing down to the West.
The West and Ukraine are putting open and undisguised pressure on countries within Fide. This is no secret, everyone knows about it. Unfortunately, Fide is also not free from the politicization of sport and the world of chess in particular.
The Kremlin is basically accusing Fide of siding with the West. But in reality, the ban isn't a one-way decision. In many ways, it was more democratic than Russia's own regime. 41 delegates voted to maintain the ban. 21 voted in favor of lifting the ban entirely, and 11 votes abstained. So it's not just the West that does not want these players to be readmitted, Russians and Belarusians, it's also other members. One of the biggest names in the world of chess, of course, has strongly opposed the inclusion of Russian and Belarusian players. Take a listen.
Sanctions against Russia and Belarus should only be strengthened as long as the war continues, as dictatorial regimes are trying to legitimize the war against Ukraine by using sport and athletes.
Magnus Carlsen, of course, made that statement just a couple of days earlier, quite timely that. Fide is basically obeying the International Olympic Committee's decision. The governing body, in fact, has maintained full transparency on the subject and conducted a fair vote.
We believe this approach upholds Fide's commitment to inclusivity while respecting the international framework.
Yeah, it's not just Magnus Carlsen. Vishwanathan Anand there as well, being one of the strong voices coming forth, especially in this matter that has clearly torn apart Russia in particular against the rest of the world. And here's the thing though, the Fide president is Russia's former deputy prime minister, Arkady Dvorkovich. If any politicization could have happened, is accused to have happened, it would have been from Dvorkovich's end. The Russia-Ukraine war has united the sporting world in maintaining a ban against Russia and Belarus across sport. It's not just Fide that has imposed heavy sanctions on these countries. Football's governing bodies, that's FIFA and UEFA, have suspended participation of both international and club teams from Russia since 2022, leaving the once vibrant Russian team in shambles. So much so that the Russian national team has been forced to play friendlies against Vietnam to keep their football ambitions going. Even in the recently concluded Paris Games, I'm of course referring to both the Olympics and the Paralympics, both these committees ended up banning the participation of Russian and Belarusian athletes. A few exceptions were made, yes. Athletes who had no connections with the Russian and Belarusian militaries, they were allowed to play under the neutral flag. They weren't allowed to participate in the opening ceremonies though. Even in chess, it's not like the athletes aren't allowed to participate. They have the option of doing so, but under a neutral flag. Russian players, including two-time World Championship runner-up Ian Nepomniachtchi, are allowed to participate, just not under the Russian flag. So the sanctions aren't meant to target athletes, but the countries that are waging the war. Despite Belarus not being actively involved in the Ukraine conflict, the country does support Vladimir Putin's war efforts. The actions of banning athletes from these two countries is an attempt by the sporting governing bodies to punish Russia and Belarus, whether it's football or the Olympics, and of course now chess. The world is slowly trying to get Russia and Belarus cornered. The ones, of course, who are most affected in this war are clearly the athletes. From the highs of 2023 to the lows in the fall in 2024, Red Bull's fortunes have taken quite the U-turn in the past few months in particular. They lost their top spot to McLaren in the constructors' standings, and their marquee driver Max Verstappen is facing the heat from McLaren's Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. But these aren't the only problems troubling Red Bull. The latest blow is a big one, because Verstappen is threatening to quit. No, he isn't making a move to another team. Instead, the Dutch driver is threatening to leave Formula One altogether. This after Verstappen was punished for swearing in the pre-race press conference before the Singapore Grand Prix last week. Verstappen used the F word to describe the situation of his car. Following that, the Red Bull driver was asked to do a day's community service by the Motorsports governing body, the FIA. And an angry Verstappen took FIA's punishment to heart. After finishing second at the Singapore circuit, Verstappen refused to speak to journalists who were gathered there, and instead held his own little press conference outside the confines of the FIA organized session, where he made his feelings about FIA quite clear.
I mean, these kind of things definitely decide my future as well. When you can't be yourself, you have to deal with these kinds of silly things. Now I'm at a stage of my career that I don't want to be dealing with this all the time. It's really tiring.
And it was evident by that statement that he's made that Verstappen challenged the FIA for the punishment that they imposed on him, making the Red Bull driver a hero on the internet. And don't get me wrong here, we're not promoting the cuss words or the use of foul language by sports personalities or anyone for that matter. It's obviously wrong to use any such language on a public platform. But here's the thing, instead of stipulating a fine on Verstappen, the FIA asked Verstappen to do community service, a punishment usually given by the judiciary for breaking a law in the country. The F1 governing body here is not trying to call out Verstappen for his mistake. Instead, they are trying to act like the moral police. In fact, when one looks at other sports, other sporting disciplines, players are usually fined for swearing in press conferences. It's there. This has been seen time and again in the American Football League, NFL, Basketball League, NBA. In 2022 alone, NBA players were fined over $95,000 just for swearing in press conferences. In the same year, tennis player Nick Kyrgios was slapped with a fine for swearing and spitting during his second round win at the US Open. That's right, he was fined $11,000 for his unruly behavior. Clearly, Kyrgios was way out of line and he paid the price for his act. Verstappen is saying that FIA could have followed the same here too, imposed a fine on him instead of targeting him on moral grounds. A reason that drivers, former and current, are united in backing Verstappen on.
How many lifetime community services would Gunter Steiner have to serve for using the F word? He was glorified for using the F word. Netflix broadcast this worldwide, no problem. But then to suddenly change like that?
Also backing Verstappen is Lewis Hamilton, who said that the Red Bull driver should just avoid the community service. He in fact went ahead to say, had he been in Verstappen's shoes in this situation, Hamilton would not have complied. And Verstappen's anger isn't just tied to this incident. The FIA isn't planning to stop just here. Their motto is to ban the use of foul language not just during press conferences, but also on the racing circuit too.
We have to differentiate between our sport, motorsport, and rap music. We're not rappers, you know. They say the F word how many times per minute? We're not on that. That's them, and we are us.
That's right, and this, of course, has seen a heavy backlash from every driver, from Verstappen himself, who said, what are we, 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds, to Lewis Hamilton, who also lashed out against this. He, in fact, said those are the wrong choice of words, and there's a racial element to this. They're not pleased by the FIA's schooling tactics. Hamilton saw racial stereotyping in there. Verstappen, though, was baffled by this sort of a treatment by the FIA. Again, not promoting the use of cuss words here, but the kind of intensity with which players play sport, they tend to get carried away many times. We've seen that with across other sporting disciplines, like Indian cricketer Virat Kohli. Despite being known as the face of cricket, his on-field outbursts may not be the best for any budding athlete to learn off. But the aggression he brings to the sport is something that cricket world enjoys. They revel in it. We have footballers who do the same. Even renowned managers like Pep Guardiola have been caught swearing on the sidelines. He even recently kicked the dugout bench during a game against Arsenal. Imagine not having that intensity on the pitch, in the field, wherever you are. Would sport still be as popular, as intense? Even in UFC, fighters are allowed to cuss, not just in the ring, but even in press conferences. It's considered a highlight of UFC, adds to the drama.
Come and shut this man up. A little rat, a little weasel. I showed you my hands, no weapons.
I don't know what this guy talking about. I don't understand what he gonna do 6 October. He think whiskey gonna help him?
Let me take my picture. How's Noah? How's Noah, huh? Yeah, shoot you never speak about me.
That's what people watch sport for. The rivalry, the intensity, the contest. So clearly, other global sporting bodies understand this, that being the ethics enforcer isn't possibly right for the sport to flourish. Maybe FIA should understand that too before it gets too late, because for now, it's just one questioning the rules. But we might see more drivers follow Verstappen if they too are pulled up for profanity, which clearly won't be good for the sport. Now, in the absence of Rafael Nadal, who had to painfully withdraw from the Laver Cup, his prodigy of sorts, Carlos Alcaraz, didn't disappoint. The young Spaniard was in fact the most impressive player in the tournament. But we aren't talking about his prowess on the court today, nor are we going to speak about how he scored those wins for Team Europe. We're going to talk about the new love triangle that's struck the tennis world. Take a look.
When the young Carlos Alcaraz burst onto the scene, the world saw the similarities. You couldn't escape it. The cheery smile, the aggressive play, the unstoppable stamina and the thirst for success. While the legend of Rafa Nadal was walking into his last phase, Alcaraz was starting his own glorious era. Both Spaniards tethered together. Alcaraz looking up to Rafa and hoping to follow in his footsteps. You just could not miss the connect.
It's been a beautiful experience. Unforgettable moments. My childhood dream was to play with Rafa, to learn up close from him, and it's come true. We should focus on the positives. It's been a wonderful experience.
It did feel like one legend was passing on the baton to his successor, someone he had personally handpicked. And now it feels like this is blossoming into a full-blown love triangle, with Roger Federer now entering the mix. And it all played out at the Laver Cup, starting with this cute moment. The former world number one showing the contender to the throne how it's done. That adjusting of the bow tie, a very poignant moment, felt like Federer giving Alcaraz his blessings. And the internet loved it. In the absence of the Federer-Nadal bromance, they are given another treat. Federer picking his next generation to pass on the legacy. And Alcaraz also promptly followed that up by notching up a rare feat. One that not even Rafael Nadal or Novak Djokovic had been able to achieve. Becoming the first player to get 8 points, the most that a player had earned, surpassing Federer's 7, the best till date that was set in 2017. Alcaraz even admitted before the Laver Cup that he wanted to impress Federer.
I always try to imitate him a little bit, and I always try in every practice and in every match. I will try to put a show, to put a good point on the match just to make him enjoy watching the match.
He was absolutely stoked when the internet went on to say that everyone was calling Alcaraz Fedo 5, to which he of course gave a sheepish response.
I'm too far away from that level. Hopefully, I'll reach it one day. But it's going to be impossible. They have to change my name because Fedo 5 is forever going to be for Roger Federer.
One thing is certain, the world is definitely in withdrawal symptoms mode of missing the legendary and intense Federer and Nadal battles. Carlos Alcaraz, though, in his own way is giving us Fedal memories, keeping the two legends and their legacies alive.
Time for last serve. Not some pretty pictures that we are bringing to you today, but it's quite astounding nevertheless. A massive sinkhole swallowed a part of a football field in London. After heavy rains and flooding, a sinkhole opened up in English club AFC Wimbledon's stadium. Take a look. That wraps it up here on Firstpost. I'll see you again tomorrow with fresh perspectives from the world of sports. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.